Bolton, it has quite a significant heritage, an industrial heritage.
Bolton is one of the major towns in the northwest here. Manchester is only 12 miles away.
I think it's quite an unsung story really, the impact of Bolton not only on the textile industry but also footwear and sports as a whole.
One of the most famous probably will be the history of Reebok.
The Reebok Stadium, we still call it that now.
Reebok was founded in Bolton in 1958 by two brothers, Joe and Jeff Foster. They built on the legacy of their grandfather, Joseph William Foster. This is the story of how a small factory in Bolton led to footwear worn all around the world.
My name is Joe Foster. I'm co-founder of Reebok. I was born in 1935 and now I'm approaching 90. My grandfather, born in 1880, he was a runner, not a very good runner, but he enjoyed running, and he was a member of the Bolton Primrose Harriers. And this is one of their meetings, and this is my grandfather here. So this is possibly around 1890, and he thought, well, maybe if I put some spikes in the bottom of my running shoes, this may help me. And he was only 15, we're talking about 1895.
Joseph Foster's running pumps were light, used the softest leather, and had 6 spikes on the front of the sole for extra grip on the racetrack.
Let's say he improved far beyond what his competing athletes ever thought that he should be. He ended up making them all spike running shoes. That was the start of his business.
In the early 1900s, running became increasingly popular, with running clubs opening across the country. The rise of sports, both elite and amateur, created a need for suitable footwear. Foster & Sons took off.
J.W. Foster athletic shoes, Bolton, for all sports footwear, known the world over. I mean, to print that, you've got to be known the world over. This design was my grandfather's day, which was in the 30s, the 20s and 30s. This was a real classic design. Yeah, so these are hand sewn, handmade. And Foster's were hand sewn in England.
Joseph Foster adopted innovative marketing techniques. He placed eye-catching adverts in sporting papers and gifted his shoes to the best runners in the country. Alfred Shrubb broke the 6-mile record in 1904, and Harold Abrahams won gold in the 100-metre sprint at the 1924 Paris Olympics. Both were wearing Foster's track spikes, handmade in the Bolton factory.
C.B. Holmes was one of our best athletes, very stylish runner, very good runner, very good athlete. The guy in the middle is Alf Shrubb. He broke 3 world records, and that was in Foster's shoes. This is a young me. I've got my Foster's running shoes on there. This is my father, and that's my uncle, but that's my grandfather.
Joe's grandfather, the original Joseph Foster, passed away in 1933. Following this, the business was run by Maria, Joseph's widow, who soon handed it over to her sons Billy and James. Throughout the 1940s, J.W. Foster & Sons were still renowned for their sporting shoes, hand-sewn in Bolton. They even supplied the British athletics team at the 1948 London Olympics.
When I worked there, that is almost identical to the shop floor. So you can see they'd not moved forward at all.
Joe Foster, the third generation in the business, took his place at J.W. Foster & Sons in 1952. Along with his brother Jeff, he learned the basics of shoemaking. However, by the late 1950s, Joe Foster and his brother thought that their father and uncle had become too complacent, no longer moving the business forward.
My older brother, he was 2 years older than me, Jeff, he had been to Germany, and he had seen Adidas, and he'd seen Puma, and he'd seen the shoes they were making. And Foster's were still making the same shoes. I told my father, that's it, we're going. And he picked up the letter opener. And he came toward me, "You're stabbing me now." And said, "Look, Dad, this is not it. We've got to have a future." We could see the company was fading, and it would have failed.
In 1961, after the death of Joe's uncle Bill, Joe's father James closed J.W. Foster & Sons. That same year, former employee and shoemaking protege Norman Walsh went off to set up his own business in Bolton. We'll look at Walsh's work soon. Meanwhile, Joe and Jeff Foster had already broken away from the family business to form their own company, which they originally named Mercury.
We set our company up because we needed a future. We needed to earn some money. It's as simple as that. We didn't have any grand ideas that we were going to be the biggest of the best. 18 months into our business, our accountant said, Joe, you're doing all right. You're making money. You better register your name. Well, we didn't know where to register the name. And he found it was already pre-registered. Okay, if you want it, they'll sell it to you for £1,000. So we had £1,000. And they said, or you can get a new name. So I opened my dictionary. I start thumbing through. RWBOK. I'm thinking, what's that? It's a small South African gazelle. Wow, we're a running company. Gazelle. So that's how we got Reebok.
The history of Reebok is very much tied to changes in running, fitness trends, and the northern landscape. To understand shoemaking in Bolton, you need to meet Bolton's athletes.
Tell all my fans, autographs will be signed after outside. My name's Mike Freary. I was born in Lancaster. Came to Bolton in 1960 after national service. I went to this race at Liverpool called the Waterloo Road Race. It was one of the biggest races in the country at the time. And I did well. I sprinted in with a Bolton lad. I got talking to him after. And he introduced me some more Bolton lads. What's jobs like in Bolton? And he said, oh, I'll fix you up with a job. I thought, well, I'll make the move and do that.
Yeah, what's not to love about living in Bolton, you know? My name's Lindsay Brindle. I'm a fell runner and I'm from Horwich, which is in Bolton. We have, well in Bolton, so lucky, there's at least 4 running clubs. We've got Bolton Harriers, Burnden, Lostock, Horwich. And we're all friends with each other. I've got friends from all clubs. And there's like local rivalry, a bit of competition, which is great, all good fun. For me, it's definitely being so close to the countryside and just like within 1 mile of where I live, I can be on the moors. And I think that's why we've got such a good quality of fell runners as well around here, because it's there, it's on our doorstep, you know.
My name's Steve Kenyon. I'm a former international athlete and I'm from Bolton. Back in 1979, I finished 3rd in the New York Marathon. In 1985, I won the Great North Run. I joined Bolton Harriers in 1966. This is Bolton Harriers club vest. There's a Bolton on the front, and a friend of mine, his wife, was good at embroidering. She embroidered my initials on the front. I started to train a little bit with Mike Freary from his house. We'd meet at Mike's on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock for the traditional Sunday morning long run, 20 miles generally.
In Bolton, you train on a Sunday. It's a solid run. I've always said that do your hills. That's really what you need.
The terrain is a very challenging terrain, and one way or another, if you want to go for a run, you've got to be able to push yourself up a hill. My name's Martin Jones. I'm a Boltonian, and I spent most of my life running through the woods and over the hills. You've got to remember Rivington. I mean, I hold the title for the original course over at Holcombe, you know.
Rivington Pike Fell Race is one of the most historic and important races in the region. Once a year, runners gather to take on this challenging route. Just 3.25 miles, but with an 800-foot ascent.
The Rivington Pike Race is every Easter Saturday. I know it's the oldest fell race in the fell running calendar, so there's some history there. It attracts some really good quality runners. Everybody in Horwich comes out to watch the Pike Race. Yeah, maybe I got a bit lucky in 2015. I think I was just running really well at the time, and I had such a weight off my shoulders to cross that line, and I'd won it. That was it. Like, I was, you know, my dad had never won it, my uncle had never won it. But yeah, I got the victory, and then I actually the following year went and won it again.
Environments like this actually bring out the gutty, hard, driven individual, and I think it's that actually really makes people a good strong runner. You know, running through mud and up hills, jumping logs, you need a pair of these. Walsh PBs.
Walsh was founded in 1961 by Norman Walsh in Bolton after working for J.W. Foster's. He was very well known for his fell running contributions, something that we're still very proud of today.
I remember going and getting my first pair of Walshes. I remember going to the factory with my dad. All fell runners had a pair of Walshes. It was like a ritual. This is your Walsh shoe, this is what you have.
So at Walsh there's a strong duality of old and new. The design process takes quite a digital approach, which then goes into the pattern cutting with Peter, which is a very traditional, old school kind of process.
Probably the most popular one at this moment in time is the Tornado. Yeah, you can see all the sectional parts that we have here. And then we've got, although this isn't the same shape as this is what we call the outside back. It's built up like a jigsaw puzzle.
From there it comes the factory floor where production starts. It starts with the clicking, as it's known, which is the cutting of each shape of the pattern and each material. From there it goes to closing, which is the sewing and taking each 2D piece and making that back into a 3D shape. From there it goes into the lasting production, which takes that upper of the shoe and forms that around the last, giving the shoe its true shape. And from there it's then attached to a sole and it's done.
This is pretty much the same shoe that I had when I was 13. In fact, I'd say it's identical, nothing has changed. That grip is absolutely, that is up there with the best, I'd say. The colours, everything is exactly the same.
A product informed by runners for runners' needs.
We have a very loyal customer base with the fell runners who we try and support as best as we can. This is the PB, this is the magnum opus of Walsh really. The shoes have remained little unchanged since about 1985. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
As well as the PBs, Norman Walsh was famed for the Pennine Adder, the first ever mountain running shoe. Walsh developed a successful line of shoes for marathon running in the 1970s, and their rugby and cricket boots were also exceptionally popular during this time. Norman Walsh, like Joe Foster, understood the importance of good marketing and working with athletes. They also drew on their experiences of learning the craft of shoemaking, from hand sewing to mould construction and everything in between. In the early years of Reebok, everyone had to chip in.
I worked for Reebok around about 1976-77. Joe might say to me, can you go across to the factory and pick some shoes up? So I'd drop the back seats of the car, drive across to Bright Street, and Joe's brother Jeff was there who ran the factory. And I would literally load up the car with shoe boxes.
Well, in the very early days, we did whatever. I would be making shoes as well as sort of answer the telephone, doing whatever, maybe doing the bookkeeping. But as we started to grow and develop and we got a few employees, and Jeff said, look, I'll look after the factory. You do everything else, marketing, sales, whatever.
By the late 1960s, the running boom was on the horizon. With more and more people taking up road running, Joe and Jeff Foster made the deliberate decision to target this market. That's what led them to Ron Hill.
When I came to Bolton, I befriended a lad called Tony Platt. He said to me this day, he said, there's a lad called Ron Hill. He's at Manchester University, and he's a good one. And he said, I'm going to get him to join the club. Anyway, he joined us. And we hit it off straight away. He was a good athlete, a really good athlete.
As a junior, I was running in senior races along with Ron and Mike. Ron Hill, obviously well known throughout the world, an innovator.
He was the first person to really create split shorts. Yeah, he was a legend. He was also a major part of the running boom.
Yeah, well, this really takes me back to our relationship with Ron. Really what we were looking for, and what Ron was looking for, was weight. He wanted the lightest possible shoe that he could get. Wherever he was racing, he would wear these lightweight shoes.
In his long career, Hill would clock up 115 marathons, winning 21 and setting 4 world records. In 1970, he became the first ever British athlete to win the Boston Marathon. He was wearing a pair of the shoes he designed with Joe and Jeff Foster, the Reebok World 10. Ron Hill's win brought huge awareness of Reebok, and orders for the shoes flooded in. The craze for running was gathering momentum.
My name's Dave Singleton. I'm a former Bolton United Harrier. I worked for Reebok from the early 80s into the early 2000s. Reebok invited me to become a sponsored athlete. Got talking to Joe Foster about how it could be promoted, and we came up with the idea of the Reebok Racing Club. What I got here is the Reebok Racing Club vest. This was my wife's actually at the time. There was a running boom going on, but at the same time it was very much a running community, certainly in the north of England, where there were certain races that attracted top runners, but there was a race every weekend if you wanted a race.
Then I remember one day an American gentleman turned up, Paul Fireman, yes, and I think that was the start of Reebok becoming the huge success that it became.
Paul Fireman came over and saw a small factory, numbering bird factory. We can handle the production. Come and see some of the races, see how shoes are doing well. We took him to 3 or 4 races, and of course the winner was wearing Reebok.
Reebok had tried for years to break the American market. When Joe Foster met businessman Paul Fireman in 1979 in Chicago, this was his chance. By this time, Runner's World was a full-colour glossy magazine with immense influence. It was considered the Bible for runners.
Runner's World, you've got to get a 5-star rating. This is our 5-star Aztec shoe. Jeff showed me this shoe when it was first made, and I said, why red and yellow? He said they're the only 2 colours I had. So that was the choice. They were the only 2 colours he had. Made in 78, and of course in 79 it got the 5 stars. Aztec. He got 5 stars. Wow. I guess that was a moment. Moment in time where you think, and that was the difference. For 10 years we've been pushing, but we hadn't got that credibility. All of a sudden we became credible. Fantastic. Once we get to America, it's totally different.
It was almost like warp speed. This was being driven by enormous growth within the US market. The Aztec to start with, and what Reebok Racing Club had done. Then along came the fitness boom and aerobics.
The 1980s were a time of sweeping change in popular culture. Trainers were becoming increasingly fashionable and were seen as something to wear casually, as well as in the gym or while jogging. Reebok sought to tap into this expanding market, creating pioneering shoes for running, basketball, and most famously, aerobics.
I think the attraction for women was that you could now get product that looked really cool. I am Fiona Adams. I was hired to work on aerobics product particularly.
Fiona Adams joined a growing design team at Reebok, building off the successes of its aerobics range. In 1982, the freestyle aerobics shoe was debuted, recognisable by its soft leather and pastel colours. They even caused a media frenzy when Sybil Shepherd wore them to the Emmys.
Reebok looked different to everybody else's because there was a really strong, distinct DNA. The materials were softer, the quality, the turned edges of the leather, the tiny stitches per inch. Every shoe that we did, we would sort of try and hit 1 million pairs per shoe, and if it didn't, I can remember thinking, I'm a bit gutted because we didn't quite make 1 million pairs on that shoe.
Reebok went from 3 million to 18 million to something like 300 million in consecutive years.
This period of rocketing sales was also a time of radical innovation. New materials and construction techniques resulted in groundbreaking shoes every season. But analog design skills were still central to the ethos of the company.
Some people worked on computers, some people still did it by hand. Supportive round your ankle and all the functional features of an aerobic shoe, but just looking a bit different. Being able to spend time working with great talented designers was great.
While Fiona Adams was designing cutting-edge running shoes in Reebok's American headquarters, Norman Walsh Footwear continued to make trainers in its Bolton factory. Walsh has been a firm fixture in the British footwear market since it was founded in 1961.
I've been here, it'll be 13 years this year. Started working on production and made my way into the design. So we try and keep to the same traditional materials that Norman used to use. And we also strongly look back into the archive of footwear. This is the Whirlwind. It was developed around the late 70s to early 80s, and it was a road marathon running shoe. So this is a modern iteration of the Whirlwind. It still uses the very traditional materials that were used in the original. It's just brought up a bit more to modern standards, but it's identifiably Walsh. Very proud to work for a brand like this, and it's also very important to me to keep this story and identity of the brand alive.
Just like Jason Crompton, there are moments of great pride for Joe Foster. By 1989, Reebok had reached annual sales of almost $2 billion. What was once a small Bolton company had truly become a global name.
When we got the 5-star shoes, you remember that. When we became number one, you remember that. You know, those are great moments. Never expected those things in your life.
The 1990s saw Reebok's high-profile sponsorship of local football club Bolton Wanderers. But as operations shifted to America, Reebok's factory in Bolton was ultimately closed. In 1989, after 35 years of building the business, Joe Foster decided to step back from Reebok for good. While some doors close, others open. Bolton continues to produce some of the country's best runners, supported by the town's legendary running clubs. Olympic athlete Hannah Kelly joined Bolton United Harriers at the age of 11.
My name's Hannah Kelly and I'm a sprinter that does 400 metres and I'm from Bury. Being part of Bolton Harriers, we know that the club has like such a rich history. On the wall out there we have a list of people that have got England and Great Britain vests. Yeah, running the heat at the Olympics, the crowd was insane. I think it was 60,000 people. Before we went out, one of the girls just put a arm around me and said, "You're about to be an Olympian," and that, I think I would have cried if I wasn't about to run. When people come here, they can know that like that could be me one day. So yeah, it's really, really inspiring, to be honest.
Hannah joins a long line of athletes like Lindsay Brindle and Mike Freary, and others before them like CB Holmes and Ethel Johnson, who've enjoyed national and international success. From tracks to trails, these people have ventured out, overcome adversity, and worn hundreds and thousands of pairs of shoes. Many of them, like Dave Singleton, Steve Kenyon, Martin Jones, and Ron Hill, combined a love of running with a career in the sports shoe industry. And it's the work and vision of designers like Fiona Adams and Jason Crompton, skilled shoemakers like Norman Walsh, and entrepreneurs like Joe Foster and his grandfather Joseph William Foster, who made his first pair of running spikes back in 1895, who have helped put Bolton firmly on the map.